Hello folks, here's Paradise, this is L Talk, and in this video we are going to cover everything about simple past. But before that, I would appreciate if you like this video, give a thumbs up and subscribe for the next videos that will be in this channel. Leave the comments below if you had any comments, any examples, any questions, feel free to ask always. And if you think that you need subtitles to this video, all you need to do is to click on this little button down here and we're all good to go. So let's dive into simple past usages and conditions. But before that, you need to know some basic fundamentals on auxiliary verbs. I will tell you, don't panic, on auxiliary verbs in simple past and the verbs and the shape of them in simple past tense. So, verbs in the simple past, they would be in two ways. The first one would be regular verbs. As the name suggests, it means that they are usual, they are ordinary. And the second type is irregular. So, what is the difference between two and when should we know which one to use exactly? In the regular type, we add ed at the end of the verb. So, for example, play. When we want to say that this verb, this action happened in the past, we will add ed at the end. So, for example, play in the normal way would be played, to be converted into simple past, to show that this action, this verb of playing, happened in the past. Or for example, another verb, cook. Cook would be cooked. We add ed at the end to show that this verb, this action happened in the past. Study, study. You see this little I in here? The reason that in here we use I is that when we have y at the end of the verb and we are going to add ed to make it like in the past, it happened in the past, the y will change into I. So when we say studied, we do not say studyd. Y changes into I. That is something in grammar, in dictation, sorry. So this is regular type of verbs in simple past. The verb simply, ed will be added at the end of the verb to show that it happened in the past. Okay, so something easy, huh? But how about irregular verbs? Irregular verbs, I'm so sorry to say that, but you have to memorize them. I mean, this type, they are good boy. They follow the orders, they follow a rule, and you know how to deal with them. But irregular verb, let's say they are bad boys. You have to memorize them. They don't obey the rules. They don't follow a kind of rule. It's not like you say, I will add ed to this verb so that to show that this verb, this action happened in the past. Unfortunately, that doesn't work on irregular verbs. So what should we do? There is this list that you have to memorize them. I mean, you have to memorize them. For example, eat, when we want to show that this action happened in the past, we don't say eated. Oh, we don't have that. We say ate. You know what? Because eat is an irregular verb. And when we want to show that this verb happened in the past, there's no rule to that. We cannot add ed at the end of the verb. It's irregular. Ate. Or for example, choose. The past form is chose. We do not have choose though. Never ever use that. Go. I bet this is a kind of verb that you faced it 100 times. Go is a typical verb that we use every day. The past form is went. We do not say goed. We don't have goed. We say went. Or be. Be in the future videos, I will tell you everything that you need to know about be. But for now, know that when we want to make it in the past, it will be changed into was or were. We do not say beed. Okay? So these irregular verbs, there is a list. I will leave the list for you in the comments, in the captions, so that you know. These verbs are the most used verbs. You need to memorize them in order to have a very daily conversation, in order to be able to cover the very daily conversations. Okay, so these are the verbs in simple past. The next phase that we are going to cover would be the auxiliary verb. Now, what is auxiliary verb? Auxiliary verb is a verb that you use in your sentences to help you in order to make your sentences and change them into negative and question form. So whenever we say auxiliary verb, they are in past, in present, in future. We have them everywhere. Okay, it's a general thing. It can be applied on different tenses. But auxiliary verbs, they are the kind of verbs that they help you in making questions and making sentences negative. So this is the very basic things you have to know about auxiliary verbs. So the next time that somebody told you, tell me an auxiliary verb, or you saw this word, remember, auxiliary verb, they are the verbs that help you create questions and negative sentences. Okay, very basic thing. Okay, the auxiliary verb for simple past that we are going to cover in here today is did. Okay, did. This is also another auxiliary verb, was or were, but I will cover this one in continuous, in past continuous. But for now, we are going to stick to did. Okay, so when I want to make a question and use the auxiliary verb of simple past in that question, how would that be like? Did would be at the beginning of the sentence. But remember, when we have WH questions, WH words, for example, where, how, who, it will be after those words. So for example, when I want to say, where did you go yesterday? You see, I said, where did you go? Where did? Did would be after WH, the word of WH question. But in here, we just covered the simple kind of questions that they start with did. So, did you go to the restaurant last night? Did you go? You see, the first important thing that probably comes to your mind right now is that didn't we say that the verbs in the past should be actually in the past? So, in this case, we have go in here. Go is simple verb. It's not in the past. So you said that when we have the verb go, it changes, it's a irregular verb, and it changes into went. So why didn't you say, did you went to the restaurant last night? Because that's an error. When we have did, remember, when we have did, we always use the verb in the simple form. So no matter it's in the past, did is already showing that it's in the past. Remember, auxiliary verb that we use in the past is did. So whenever I say did, it means that I'm talking about the past. So there's no need to say went. Okay, so keep that in mind. When we have did, and in the next videos, I will tell you that do, does, they are auxiliary verbs for present. They have the same rule. When we have did, the verb is always simple. So, did you go to the restaurant last night? Did you go? The verb is simple, remember. Okay, this is the question form, and you see, the rest of the sentence is like a typical sentence, a typical question. Okay, it's not very different from other questions. The difference is that we use the auxiliary verb at the beginning of our question and the verb is always simple. Now, let's go to the negative part. How do we show our sentence in the past tense in a negative way? How do we do that? Simply, we use did plus not. So, for example, imagine I want to answer this question and answer the question in a past tense mode. So, how do I put it? I didn't go to the restaurant last night. I didn't. It means that something didn't happen last night. So, again, you see, the verb in here, go. Again, it's simple. Why? Because we have did. Whenever we have did, it can be in the question, it can be in the negative form. Both of the forms, whenever I have did, the verb is always simple. Okay? So, didn't. Whenever we want to make a sentence negative, you know that. We add not. Okay? So, we say did not, didn't go to the restaurant last night. So, this is the form that I use did as an auxiliary verb. But did is also a verb itself. So out of this concept, of auxiliary verb, did means performed. So for example, when I say I did my homework last night, did is actually the main verb. It's not an auxiliary verb. So in here, go is the main verb. It means that the main action that is actually happening in this context, and did is auxiliary verb. But when I say I did my homework, for example, yesterday or last night, did in here is the main verb. Okay, main verb. And in here, did means performed. It means that I performed my homework. There were some tasks, there were some exercises for me, I did them. I did those exercises. So in here, did is main verb. And again, you see, performed. What is this ed for? Can you tell me? Perfect, because it shows that it's happened in the past. So performed, perform is a regular verb. We add ed, it's a good boy. We add ed to the end to show that it happened in the past. But did is a bad boy, irregular verb. So in here, I did my homework is the main verb, but in here, main verb is go and did is auxiliary verb. Okay, so did has two main categories when we use it. I mean, the thing that we want to say. The first one can be auxiliary verb when we have a main verb and have it at the same time. Out of this concept, we have did to say that I performed something that happened. Okay. Now that we know the verbs and the way that we express them and the rules that apply to them in the past, and we know the auxiliary verb of simple past, now we are going to dive into simple past and understand what are the conditions that we use simple past in actually. So, the usage of simple past. Completed. I stress on it. This is an important part because in the future, when I explain other tenses, you might get confused and say, so why don't we use simple past in here? Why don't we use, for example, past perfect? What is the reason that we use past continuous? What is the difference? Completed. When something happened in the past and finished in the past, it's very important. It's the key point of simple past. So when I say, for example, I played soccer yesterday, it means that I did that activity yesterday and it happened, it finished, it completed in the past. It doesn't come to the present. It doesn't have results into present. In the past. It's in the past. Okay, so completed actions in past. So the formula, what is the formula of simple past? We already covered it in here. The verb would be plus ed in the irregular part if the verb is regular, and if the verb is irregular, it would be irregular. I'm sorry, but you have to know, you have to memorize it, the list that I mentioned. So let's see some examples to actually settle that down. The positive form, for example, the first sentences of each would be with regular verb, and the second one would be for irregular verb. I played soccer yesterday. I played soccer. It happened yesterday. It was completed yesterday, and that's it. Okay? We see we have ed in here. Why? To show that it happened in the past. But I say I went to the office yesterday. I went to the office. Why? What was the verb actually in the first place that it changed into went? Perfect. It was go. It was go. It was a bad boy. It was irregular. So it converted into went to show that it's happening actually in the past. How about the negative form of these? For example, I played soccer yesterday. I didn't play. You see, it doesn't matter the verb is regular or irregular in the negative and in the question because the auxiliary verb is the same. The auxiliary verb is did, no matter it's play, regular verb, or it's go, a bad boy, irregular verb. In both of them, we use did not to show that it's a negative sentence. As you see, I didn't play soccer yesterday. I didn't do something yesterday. I didn't go to the office yesterday. Again, you see that both of them, in both cases, we use the verb in the simple form, okay? So, the negative. The question, I want to ask a question of this. Again, I use the auxiliary verb, did. It doesn't matter. Again, I mentioned in here, no matter you use where, how, any other thing, anytime, anywhere, under any condition that you are going to make a question in simple past, you are always going to use the auxiliary verb did. It can be not, like for example, when we use where, how, who, like this, it can be not the first character, but still you have it in your question. So the auxiliary verb that you use in simple past always is did, okay? In some sentences, we will see that we use was or were. But for now, keep that in mind, that did in here is the auxiliary verb for simple past in the question. So, did you play soccer yesterday? Again, as you see, we are using the verb in the simple form. We do not say, did you play the, that's, no, okay? Did you play soccer? Did you go? Again, the verb is simple. So, let's go for a quick summary of what we learned today. First off, we learned that the verbs in past, they are in two forms, regular, irregular. In the regular, we add ed to the verb. In the irregular, you have to memorize them. And the list, I will give you a complete list in the caption as a file to be downloaded for you. So don't forget to get that. For auxiliary verbs, a question form, a negative form, always for making a question and making a sentence negative, you use did. In simple past, the auxiliary verb would be did. So in the question, for example, did you go, blah, blah, and we always keep that in mind, that we use the verbs simple, when we are using the auxiliary verb did. And for negative, I didn't, for example, go, blah, blah, blah. Again, in here, we have the verb in the simple form. So, did out of this concept also had a meaning. It's a verb, actually, like performing, doing something, but in the past. So, did out of this concept of auxiliary verb means performed. Did to do something in the past. The next topic that we covered was the usages of simple past, a condition in which an action was completed in the past. Finished, started, and finished at the same point, at the same spot in the past, and that's it. The formula in the irregular verb would be the verb plus ed, and for irregular verb, you have to memorize them. The example, we provided some examples in order to have a better understanding of these formula inside the context in positive sentences, negative sentences, and question form. I hope now that you watch this video, you have a more comprehensive, and a better understanding of simple past and the conditions that we use and the way that we show the verbs inside and the auxiliary verb. In the next video, I'm going to cover the same concept, the same structure for simple present. So keep watching these videos if you think you are having some gaps in the grammar understanding so that you have a better understanding of these topics. And again, I would appreciate if you liked this video, if you liked it and you found it useful, and for sure, leave comments. Try to practice sentences in this context, simple past. Make some questions, make some answers, make some sentences. It can be positive, negative, anything. Leave that in the comments below. I will make sure to answer each and every one of them. So let's go to the next movie to watch more. Bye.